Hello everybody, welcome to the stream. I'm going to try to do a quick tutorial today, about a 1 hour. We're going to cover water, and it's going to be kind of simplified, kind of a quick stream. I recommend not trying to start your water on your own and build from scratch, but actually take something existing in the game. So what we'll do today is I'm going to go ahead and I would like to place a water volume and a section of water here currently right about here, kind of like an oasis. So hopefully, I might have to do some adjustments, but we'll see how it pans out. So the first one that you can do is you can take the water with the physics volume, the post-processing volume, and all that currently from Hanuman's Cave, which is a very small kind of preset uh, level. So I believe that will be in level 4.1 under cave. So I'm going to go ahead and open up level 4.1. And let's go ahead and open up our caves 4.1. And then let's go ahead and hide 4.1. And now you can see the actual cave system with the water and all that connected. So the trick here is we want to go ahead and make sure we have view options, display. Let's see. Actually, sorry. We need to go to World Outliner. And I'll pop that window up. And we're going to go view options here and go in current level only. And right now it's called Dungeon Imp Cave. So what we want is we want the physics volume and the post-processing volume and the static meshes. As you can see, they're really close together, so that's when the player hits the water. That's when you get your swim effect and all that. So what I want to do is go ahead and grab the nav mesh volume and the post-processing water cave volume. And then I want to also grab the static mesh. And luckily the static mesh is already grouped together. So we should have everything technically selected. So let's just double check. So we got our static meshes, our physics cave for when you hit the water to swim, and our nav water mesh volume. Let's see. And do I have the post process? Let's make sure I got the post process selected in this. Right there. PP water cave. Alright, that gives you your blurry lighting, etc. when you're swimming. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and hit Control G, and I can group it on this level right now. And I'm going to hit Control Copy, Control C. And then I'm going to go back and set my current level to 6.0, or height map says 0. And we're going to make it current. And now we're going to go ahead and head back to our area. Now we should be able to place all that down right here. So right click, hit edit, hit paste here. And to double check, I want to make sure I have the volumes and all that, and it looks like we do, because I'm driving through it right now, so it's all there. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and sync this down. And I'm going to give it a little bit of a twist here, rotation. And for the most part, it looks pretty good. Oops, let's slow our camera down a little bit further here. Let's bring the speed down just slightly. And we're going to drop down here, make sure. And so far it looks pretty good. Now we might have to adjust this again, so I'm just going to make sure I hit Control G again to make sure it's grouped together. So that seems to be all there. And then let's go ahead and make sure we hit current only. Yep, we're in the current level only. Oops. Let's go ahead and hide all these here in a second. Alright. Okay, everything looks like it's here. And I'm going to unload these other levels because we don't need them. So let's go ahead and unload the cave. Unload 4.1, which it all is unloaded. Okay, good. All right. So now we're back here to our volume. So we get that. And the water mesh is currently sitting there too. So now what we can do, this will be kind of another little refresher too on the sculpting tools as well. Now let's see here. Let's go ahead and rotate this slightly. So we'll go back down here, make sure I got this all selected. Now sometimes when you copy these things, you might get it to where the arrow or the transform arrow or rotator might fly out in the world somewhere. Sometimes you just deselect one of the grouped items and you'll get your location of your arrow and transform back. Okay, so we're just going to rotate this a little bit, do a little bit of an adjustment, because I don't want this very big. I just want it to be kind of a little pond here. And yeah, right about there. All right. And now what we're going to do is, you can tell the static mesh for the water is kind of sticking up here, which is okay. We'll do some sculpting to kind of hide those edges. And what we'll do is we're going to hit our modes tools, or modes panel, sorry. And we're going to hit the mountain. And we'll wait for it to load up. And here's our sculpt tool. Now through your sculpt tool, you can pick the different variations, like smoothing the terrain, flatten it, create ramps, which we'll get into that a little bit later, and then erosion, hydro erosion. I don't recommend using the erosion, hydro erosions, or the noise. Those tend to create kind of like potholes, and it really doesn't do super well. It's a lot of screwing around, but if you manage to get it working, so be it. But I do a lot of hand sculpting the terrain. It's much easier. So let's go ahead and we're going to hit our sculpt tool, and let's adjust our brush. So we'll adjust our brush size down to about 1,000, sometimes around 900, 800 is pretty good. Now you can hold down, it's going to bring our terrain up. If you hit shift, left click, it's going to start bringing the terrain down. Now you notice there's our water static mesh showing. And the trick is obviously our physics volume, post-processing volumes are right here. So we want to make sure our terrain kind of matches and meets up with that. So we're going to go ahead and smooth this out here, this hole. And let's go ahead and sculpt again. Hold down shift. And let's just kind of fill this in a little bit. Alright, so we've sunk it down. Now obviously we don't want a square pond. So the trick is you can make the adjustments to where you need them to get a different shape or size. So in this case, I'm just going to kind of leave it like so, I believe, because I want to make sure I have enough room. So let's just go ahead and double check before I go any further. Let's go ahead and hit save. And we'll try to hit play from here. Hopefully we don't crash. And I just want to get a feel of how big the pond is, because it is a little bit of a pain in the ass if you're trying to get a good visual representation of where it's placed in the world. So we'll just double check ourselves here while we wait for this thing to load. It is a quiet night today, though. A Wednesday, 3:43 p.m. Well, like I said, this will be a quick tutorial. I'm trying to keep it under an hour. I have to work today, so we'll see what we can knock out. If not, well, I'll have to extend this over into another hour or two for another video. As we wait for the dev kit to do its load. So we get the play mode here. The hardest part about water too is making sure all the volumes are lined up, the static meshes are lined up to the top of the surface where you're hitting your post-process, and your physics volume, because if you don't have those lined up accordingly, when you go to jump in the water, you might either float above the water, start swimming above the water mesh, or you might be swimming below it and you're not seeing the water effects of being blurry and underwater. So you got to make sure those volumes are lined up at the same heights to make the illusion that you're actually swimming underwater or on the surface of the water. So keep that in mind too. So I'll go over that here in a little bit once this thing gets us loaded up into playtest. And I love how it takes a while, especially while we're streaming. It takes a little bit longer to load up the playtest here initially. Once we've done it a few times, it should be a lot faster. And come on, editor. Let's get to it. As it sits here and cranks through. Ever since the last update with the big expansion, the kit loads up a little bit slower. So kind of a pain in the butt here. But we'll get there. And another thing too with water is you can pick water from different areas of the game that you might have liked. You know, like the oasis up in the kind of the middle of the desert, where the two ponds are. Those are pretty nice. The water in Sumper Maru is a nice selection as well. Hanneman's is more of a dark water, and I'm kind of using that right now to kind of cheat because it's smaller and it was close by instead of flying across the world to go get the other ones. But it's all in your preference, so you can choose. You know, the water volumes are already kind of created and set up. It's much easier than going through the headache of individually selecting, because you also got to remember too, you guys tag the water meshes with the word water, so that way when the player character goes up to the water, they're able to drink the water and get the water tag, so they can fill their water bags or just drink the water. As we're waiting to get to play mode. This is so terrible. This is probably one of the worst startups for playtest. So hopefully we didn't crash, but it's still cranking in. We'll see. Wow. I haven't streamed in a while, so... But hopefully we'll be set up once this thing shaders in and everything. So how about that weather? Oh, man. Where's my lurkers in stream chat to talk to me while we wait for this process? This is terrible. This was not planned to take this dang long. I was hoping we didn't lock up. I see the hard drive light just grinding away, so I'll give it the opportunity here. There it goes. Let's see. We're starting to get somewhere. Let's wait for it to transport us over there. Wow. It's taking a bit. Like how it flashes in the middle of the world here. Now just slow us up in the desert portion. You might have to fast forward through that whole section. All right, here we go. All right, finally, it's starting to come into effect. All right, so, all right, let me hit map real quick. We'll bring up the map so I can hide this window. All right, so here we are. We're in the world here where I've sculpted and raised the terrain. So notice how our character is just swimming across the water. It's pretty much in a good spot, location. The volumes are set up. We can dive down. We got the effects of being underwater. So all that's working accordingly. So that's working out great. Okay, so let's just take a quick look to see how big the little oasis we're creating is. It's a pretty decent size. All right, so we'll hit escape. And the other trick too is when you go to do this, you want to make sure that it makes sense as far as getting out of the water. Let's see here. Oops, we'll go to modes. All right, we'll go back to our sculpt tool. And like I said, you just kind of want to raise the terrain up a little bit or lower it depending on what you got for your setting. For the most part, this is pretty smooth. Now right here, I'm kind of past the line. However, as long as this is high enough where the character's not waist deep and has to start swimming, we should be good. But I'm just going to go ahead. I'm just going to bring it up slightly. And then I'm also going to go to smooth. And I'm just going to kind of smooth this out a little bit. So we can use the mesh a little bit for a shape of the water. And kind of expand our pond a little bit. Like it's a little bit shallow. As long as we don't go past our square mesh, we can kind of get this smoothed out. And like I said, you just want to make sure that you're not, you don't have a square lake. But see, like right here, notice how we hit the mesh here and it's squared. So what we do is we're just going to go ahead and modes. We're going to sculpt that up. Just bring that up a little bit. And we'll go ahead and hit smooth on that. I'm going to reduce our strength on our tool. It's a little powerful. That way it doesn't mess me up totally. And we're just going to smooth this out around the edge. See how that's square there? So we're at the edge. So what we need to do is go ahead and raise that again. And we want it kind of be sporadic. So let's make it a little bit sporadic. So it's not squared and perfecto. Because there's no such thing as a perfect shoreline, right? Unless you got a seawall there. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go to modes. We're going to go to paint. And we're going to grab the riverbed material. And we're just going to go ahead and paint that down because we don't want the desert rock as our bottom. It doesn't look right. It looks kind of funny. We want it to be like a sandy bottom. And the darkening, the auto material, which is great, is it gives you the heights, the different heights and stuff. And it almost looks like sticks and branches kind of, around the edge. And we're just going to go ahead and fill this in around the edge, make it look a little sandy around the water where it meets the desert sand. It gives you the rippled sand effect, like the water's been working on it. So I'll go ahead and do that. Let's just finish working around this. And then our bottom, you can kind of shape the bottom the way you want to, but you also want to make sure you got to keep in mind that if you're trying to get it to where players can swim, you want to make the bottom make sense. So just be careful on how you do this. I'm just going to go ahead and make some interesting features underwater here. Just so it kind of looks a little interesting. You might want to put some deep spots in there or something like that. If you want like a chest kind of tucked away, whatever it is. And then I'm going to go ahead and repaint over it, make sure it's the way I want it. And some of those dark spots are cleaned out. And so this pond kind of looks like it's full of, kind of junk, like bits of reed and grass and sticks that have collected on the bottom or kind of in the muck. So that's what that's to simulate. And let's go ahead and let's do a little bit of a flattening here. Just kind of bring the flat here so we get a little bit more sand on the bottom. And you can kind of do that on your edges too. Oops. A little powerful there. And let's go ahead and smooth this out. And then we'll double check it, make sure that it works, it makes sense. And I'm not too deep over here because it looks like I'm a little deep, so we might not make the physics volume in the post-processing. So in that case, I want to kind of keep that. So what we need to do then is go ahead and we're going to make some adjustments. So we'll go back to our placeable mode. Let's grab our volumes here. They're grouped together. Our mesh is grouped together as well. So let's do Shift G. And I'm going to deselect our meshes right now. Hit Control G. So now our meshes are separate. And what I'm going to do in the World Outliner window, World Outliner, is I'm going to hide the water meshes right now. Control Group, make sure they're grouped. And then Eyeball to hide them. Because right now what I want to do is I want to make sure I do the adjustments. So if we grab the volumes, we can do a little bit of a transform. But Shift G to break them apart because we want to do each individual one. So I'm going to do a little bit of a snap there. A little bit of snap there. So I'm just put a little bit of width on those. Same with this volume. Just a little bit of width, not a whole lot. And just going to slowly work it out by dragging the mouse, and you just pull the transforms in the direction you want to go. So you notice the boxes are actually expanding. And I didn't change the height, so I'm not hitting the z-axis, which is blue. I'm just using green, your red and green axes. So that'd be your x, y, and just tugging them. Just tugging them out to make them a little bit wider. Okay. I'm going to hit save. So this is going to save all of our settings and the widths we just selected. And I can go ahead and regroup these two now. So I can go ahead and individually select them. Control G. Go ahead and group them back up so they're grouped together. So that way if you make some adjustments and you accidentally bump something, they all bump together. So they're all, they're sitting together. Because that's what you want. All right, Windows World Outliner. And let's go ahead and unhide our water. So let's find our static meshes right here. And we're going to go ahead and make them reappear. And then if we hit playtest here, hopefully, so let's go ahead and I'm just going to save one more time, make sure. I recommend saving often just to keep your work safe, just in case you have a crash with the editor and it does something funky. Yes, continue to play with. All right, so we load in. We go to the water. We can walk along. We get the sound effect of splashing feet in the water. Then as we kick into the deeper part, now we can swim. And we're deep enough too with our physics volume that we're not like walking on the bottom and just walking around. So our physics volume is just at the right height and our pond's at the right height. So everything's working out good. And we smoothly leave the water because you want to kind of get that realistic feel of leaving the water as close as we can. Like so. Okay. And it's looking pretty good. We'll go ahead and we're just going to put some more river paint around the edge just to make sure we have some sticking out here a little bit more. All right. Get our paint to our riverbed and just work the outside a little bit, but not too far. We don't want to make it look like the riverbed spread all the way through here. We just kind of want to work it, make little areas, that kind of ripple effect in the sand. So as you're painting this down, you want to kind of spread it and give it. You don't want to make a match. You want to kind of make it look a little bit natural. So there's like little lulls within the edging. Because if you don't, then it looks too perfect. So just work it to where you feel it looks visually correct, visually right. All right, so that's looking pretty good. All right. We'll hit save. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and go to our foliage tool. So let's go ahead and do some foliage. And from my last video, I did a big long instruction on foliage, but we're just going to go ahead and highlight one. Go down here, hit shift, select them all, uncheck, and it should uncheck them all. Click off them. So everything should be deselected now. And what we're going to do is we're going to put some bottom foliage in. I recommend don't go overboard with this. Overkill. And these plankton, or yeah, the algae, sorry, the algaes are okay to put in here. Some of the corals, stuff like that. You can put some of the underwater rocks in, but you don't want to do it too heavy. You just want to do light work, and you can either hide your mesh on top or go underwater and just kind of sporadically paint carefully. But like I said, you just don't want to overkill with some of these, especially in a small area. But you want it to look like it's got plant life and maybe some stuff in here. And let's do some work up here. And you want to be careful too, unless you want the idea of some sticking out, which is okay, but just don't make it where they're deliberately sticking out too far to look unnatural. Okay, and we'll just continue to work our way around our pond here, a little oasis. And like I said, just kind of sporadic, not too heavy. Maybe some up here. Oops. Let's get rid of those. Don't want too many of those up there. There we go. That's looking pretty good. And then for the blue algae, we're gonna need to add that on our tool here, because I don't believe I have it selected unless it is already. Okay. If you come to the situation where you don't have the blue algae, you might have to add it to your palette, which is okay. Not a biggie. I'm just going to go ahead and deselect these so we're not painting all these down again, because we don't need those. Alright, so we got that deselected. Alright, so now we just want to individually paint down the blue algae, and we don't want a whole lot of it because it's a special. So, and let's just go to single instance mode. Make sure I got my single instance mode tool selected, and let's just plop a blue algae or two here. And maybe one or two or three around that rock. So not a whole lot. That looks pretty good. And that'll work. Okay. Now usually you can use a light bulb to light those up, but I'm just going to go ahead and not put a bunch of light bulbs down to light those. So they're out in the open. Now in a cave you would, because then it'd give you more of a cool bioluminescent look. But for the most part, I think it looks pretty good. Now I want to go ahead and I'm going to change this shoreline just a little bit. So let's go back to our sculpt tool. I should bring my brush down a little bit, and let's resize that. And I'm going to hit sculpt, and I'm just going to bump it a little bit just to get some of that smoothness off the edges, to just kind of break it up just a little bit. like so. Because there's no such thing as a perfect smooth pond. So there you go. So now we kind of give it a little bit of a natural formation underwater. And let's just bump that there. And a little bit right here. Oop. There we go. Like so. Okay. And then for our edging, it's water. So we probably have some life out here around the edges since it's a little bit of an oasis. So we're going to go ahead and go to our paint tool, grab our desert grass, and I don't want my tool to be too big, but I'm just going to go ahead and tap the green paint around the edges. And I'm not going to do it too heavy. If you do heavy, you can do really kind of dark green spots, but I'm just going to kind of make this follow around the oval here. And just kind of tap it in like so. Make a couple little spread patterns out to the side, perhaps. You know, just break it up a bit. Just kind of tap, 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 you know. And just kind of tap that around there. There we go. So now we got some green grass around our edging. You could have some going into the water if you want to a little bit. You know, say that grass has survived in that bit of water. And then let's fix that there. It's a little too straight for me, I think, right there. So let's just kind of fix that. Let's see here. I'm looking at something else too real quick. All right. So let's just go ahead and we're just going to do a little tap in the sculpt. Just put a little bit of a change of edge there. Okay. And then let's go ahead and hit save here. Like so. And let's do another quick play test. Let's make sure that this feels right. So I'm going to hit play from here. Okay. Yep, notice it's not too heavy. We kind of got a little bit of a beach here. Our water sound effect as we splash in. So for the most part, it's looking pretty good. Everything's working good. Going to water. Notice it's not too heavy. It feels kind of natural, like there's some plant growth, stuff like that down here. Now we could put some fish in here, which is the particle effects. Perfect. Okay. All right, escape. All right, so now what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and put some other foliage down. And let's grab some aloe. And let's grab the some of these jungle ground plants. Those are kind of nice. A couple of these jungle western sword ferns. And then some of the, what do you call these? Scarabatus bushes. The green ones. And let's see, we can probably put in a couple lotus. Now let me see if the lotus is already loaded in here. If not, we'll have to add it. Nope, there it is. So we'll check mark our lotus. Okay. And then let's go back to our big paint mode. And we're just going, like I said, we're just going to kind of tap this stuff. Oops. Let's get rid of our algae. forgot to deselect that algae. So always remember to deselect certain things that you've been working with. Otherwise, you'll be painting them back down in places you don't want. And let's see, where's that algae at? Gotta love it. There she is. Boop. Okay, and then let's hit Control Z actually on that, and probably have to do our foliage tool again one more time. Make sure I didn't just, okay, good. Alright, so just kind of tap with the left mouse button. Like I said, you don't want to go too heavy. Got a couple lotuses, you know, popping in there. I don't want to overkill it with lotus either. So if you do get that, you just go in, single-handedly select and remove some of those extras. If you think it's overkill for your area and you don't want players to be like lotus harvesting, doing lotus runs. Okay, and we kind of got that going, and looking pretty good. We'll go with that, and then let's deselect all these real quick. Let's see here. Get rid of our aloes. Get rid of our lotus. Now, I want to put down some more of these jungle grounds, but we're going to go ahead and deselect them for now. But what we were going to do next is do these little smaller plants. These little jungle ground plants. And I'll show you that here in a second. But I just want to go ahead and make sure we got all this other stuff deselected real quick. Going through and make sure I'm not repainting them. Otherwise, we'll have to go through single-handedly remove a lot more stuff, and we don't want to do that. Okay, so now I'm going to do a quick paint test. Alright, so now we got those little smaller plants, and we want to put these, I kind of use these as like little water plants and kind of where they meet the grass. Oops, we got some more aloe selected there. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. Boom, okay. And I just kind of spread them along a little bit. You know, depending on how you want to set up your water, I mean, you can make it feel like it's really either jungly and swampy, or you just, this oasis, I don't want to make it like super green and super swampy like. We just want to give it some life. And you just kind of tap along, like I said, so that you don't get like straight lines or it seems like there's an edge. So I'm just going to kind of break up the edges a little bit by just painting a little bit into the water, like they're a water surviving plant, so that they can survive underwater too, slightly along the edge. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get rid of this, these plants. Now I want to put some more of these jungles down, these thicker, heavy leaf ones, like those. I kind of like those. I like those big leafed ferns. They look more like a water-based plant to me, so I like to put some of those in. You know, give it some green. Not too heavy, but just lightly in there. And like so. Put a few in the water perhaps. Get them a little bit more edgy. Yeah, it's looking good. Same over here. A couple more of those. There. Okay. And now, let's go ahead and deselect those. And now what we're going to do is we're going to put down some palms. And we're going to get these nice, beautiful green palms with the banana leaf palms. Okay. And we're just going to go ahead and kind of go around the edges here. Do some more tapping. But depending on your look, you can make it thicker. Or like me, I'm just going to kind of sporadically paint them in here. And they're just randomly placing. And then you can make fine adjustments with the single select. If you want to get rid of some extras that might have gone down. And the nice thing too with these is you also want to try to get some nice shadowing effects as well. So it feels like a shady area along the edges or in the middle. Say we were to put like a small little island or a rock island or whatever, dirt island. It's all on how you want to set it up. Yeah, that might paint a little too heavy there. But now what you can do is you can go through with your tool, your single select, and go through and either adjust, move, spread some of them apart. You're trying to keep it so they don't look like they have a pattern, like a human hand placed pattern down, as much as possible. So it looks kind of a natural pattern. And just adjust them. I have a couple in the water. Like the water's up there next to the tree. Or if you might get a tight group like this, you can spread them apart a little bit better so they're not so tightly packed in. Unless you want it to feel like a packed in area. But just don't go overboard. Might not look right. But just make sure it's visually appealing. It's subtle to the eye. Okay. So go ahead and hit save. And we'll do another play test here real quick and make sure it looks good. Hit play from here. Okay. And the other thing too with water areas too is you want to kind of get them as smooth as you can. Kind of flatten a little bit. Not too flat. And like that plant there might be a little too big for the leaf unless like these are some ancient plants. So you can go in, adjust the size of these. However, I want to make it look like these have been here for quite a while. Nothing's really messed with them. And then we want to, of course, get rid of stuff like this, that issue. So I always recommend just kind of play through, double check your foliage. You know, if you're like me and you want to be, you know, want to make it perfect and feel right, just go through, play test it, make sure it's visually looking good and it's appealing to the eye. Like this could technically work, you know, but it's up to you. I recommend trying to move them apart so they don't look too smashed together and they look growing inside each other. It just doesn't work. But you can get away with some of them overlapping a little bit, some of the foliage. For the most part, it's looking pretty good. So now what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and we're just going to take our single select tool with our foliage from our last tutorial. And we're just going to do a bit of a shrinkage on them. Just so they're not too superly, overwhelmingly big. Because scale is kind of hard to tell when you're in the editor mode. That's why I recommend you play through too, just so you can get the scale, the feeling of the plants, you know, etc. Just go through here. You know, so that's why I always do light foliage, just to make sure, just in case I do overkill on the, because you really don't want to do 10,000 of these. It's no fun. Going through and fixing like this one here, we obviously want to fix that. The leaf is clipping and cutting through the palm. I'm just going to adjust it a little bit. There we go. Yeah, just a couple touch-ups. Nothing too crazy. Because the reason why I was talking about keeping some of these areas a little bit flat is because if you want to put some creatures or NPCs around the ponds, you want to make sure that they have an area to move around smoothly transition in and be able to navigate the terrain or navigate towards your players. Because you don't want it too super hilly and potholy. That's why when I was talking about the scope tool with these erosions and stuff like that, these create these little weird potholes, and you have to remember. And I'll just use this as an example so I can show you what I'm talking about. Some folks don't know this, but I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there that way. As you're creating your world, you keep this in mind. And I'm just going to grab, let's see, NPC. Let's grab the bear. And I'm just going to drag this bear blueprint, but this is not how you put NPCs in the game. But as you can tell, this bear has got this collision and this cage around him. And this cage, where the points meet, this is where it uses the navigate across the terrain. So you want it to be able to kind of allow this cage to flow over the terrain, because if you don't, you're going to get this rocking, wonky AI. So an example would be, let me try to throw this, because I'll show you what I mean by this. This stuff doesn't look very good, so I'm just going to go ahead and kind of paint this down. But notice how quickly it creates this. You can do all kinds of adjustments. Like I said, it's a bit of a pain in the ass. Erosion. And what it does is it'll actually start creating weird potholy effects depending on what you got set. So you can actually overkill and have very close, tightly knit dimples. And of course, it's not doing what I need it to do for this example. But here you go, right there. If you notice right here, you kind of got a bit of a dimple. Now imagine a bunch of these throughout the area. And then what happens is when that bear's cage hits those little dimples, it'll get this rocking effect of the AI traveling across the terrain. And you don't want that. Okay. Hit Control Z. Let's remove these so I don't screw up my terrain. But yeah, just keep that in mind when you're creating your terrain too, so you don't have too many weebles, wonky little pits and things where the NPCs and AI cages sit there and snag or roll up and down crazy like potholes in a highway. You kind of want to give it a little bit of a smooth transition. Let's see here. So we're going to go ahead and paint down some more grass, because I just want to kind of bring the grass back here by these trees. Just a little bit. Just kind of patch it in there. Like so. It's looking pretty good. And depending on your area, you can do other things, to make it nice. And let's go ahead and go back to our sculpt. Let's go to smooth. I'm just going to smooth this. Do some flattening work here, because I think my beach there is a little too, oops, and a little too steep there, and I want to smooth this out. There we go, like so. There we go, not too bad. A little bit better transition along the edges. And just play with it, work it out to, how it feels, if it feels better. Like this is a little steep here. I mean, you could have some steep edges, but just keep in mind, though, when the player's swimming out, that it's a nice transition from swimming from the water up onto the terrain, so it's not too wonky. Okay, so let's go ahead and save again. Save our work so far. Okay. Now, any placeable chests and stuff? Let's see. So I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to grab out of our content browser a chest. Now, there's some pre-made chests already, so I'm not going to worry about hooking up the loots and stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw in a generic. Let's see, generic Highlands T4, T3. Let's just do a generic T4. So I'm just going to grab the chest out there. It's already pre-made, so it's great. And I'm just going to go ahead and sink it down. Like so. Do some little twist on it, make it look like somebody might have lost it here or deliberately sank it in the middle of the oasis. You know, whatever. So that way your players have something to explore. You know, I wouldn't recommend doing over 2 or 3 in an area. But let's just say that somebody's been burying their loot here. So let's just go ahead and find another chest. Let's do a generic T3. And let's do... Now we could do a legendary here. We could technically. But we're going to stick with some generics. Let's just do a T for Exiles chest. Alright, and let's just go ahead and place this one over here. And then let's see, so we got our other chest over here. This chest there. So we could technically, let's take a chest up over here, like so. And see, I want to give my players a reason too to go into this water. Yeah, just because sometimes it's just fun to explore, you know, see if there's something hidden or buried, you know. And this will be our obvious one right here. Oops. This will be our obvious one that a player might be walking around the edge and go, oh, hey, wait, there's a chest. And then they'll be, hey, let's look for more. And then that'll prompt them to go searching around. So we could also do this. Let's go ahead and we're going to take one of the boats. So if I do my content browser, let's see, I think it's boat. I'm going to type boat and we'll see what happens, what we get. Now we got the sampan. Let's go ahead and there's some shipwrecks now, so these are kind of neat. I don't want to do too big. I want to make it kind of like it's a small boat. So I'm just going to use one of the exile boats. And I'm going to go ahead and scale it down just a little bit to make it look like it's a smaller craft. And we can just sink it out here somewhere. Make it look like somebody used to take a boat out here and go fishing or something, right? Give the illusion that it sank for whatever reason. It's buried in the sand here. It's broke down. You know, what have you. You could put a chest around it. But this is just another little eye candy piece to make players go, hey, wait a minute. Okay, there might be something down here. Okay. And then what we could do too is over here, I'm going to go ahead and place down, let's see, we're going to do wood. Oops, not wood. Let's go right straight to the folder. Let's go to the environment folder. So environment, and then go to buildings. And under buildings, oops, kill the wood there. And let's look for our wooden structures. Let me scroll down here. I love these new Sipta ruins. These are going to be great to work with, so I have some plans for those eventually in my mind. So those are an awesome addition to the dev kit. Can't wait to use those. And let's take this dock here. Let's drag that out. Let's drag another one. And I'm not going to worry about using a bunch of ramps, but I'm just going to take this one here. And let's drag this. And let's do a rotate. Oops, let's change our rotation. So we'll snap that in. And we're just going to pull that out like so. And I'm going to do a nice slight overlap with these so they look like they're connected. And I'll group them together, pull them out. And let's just twist it a little bit. Make it look like it's a fishing dock of some sort. Besides, we had that boat, right? And all that looks good. They look like it's connected and sunk into the ground. or the bottom of the pond. Now it's a low setting dock. We can pretend maybe the water came up, there was a monsoon that passed through, you know, what have you. And then we're going to hit save. Go ahead and save this. We'll minimize, we'll do a play test, and we'll just walk out to make sure that our dock here transitions nicely from the beach. And the player can walk up on it. Obviously, it sounds like we're walking in water, so we're going to have to bring that up just a slightly tad bit. So let's just bring that up, like so. Hit play again. There we go. Now we got our wooden plank sound, like we're walking on a bunch of logs. All right, like so. And you can see our boat down there. Look around. Oh, there's a chest. So if the players are come here and actually paid attention, they can see those things. Dive down. We can check our chest. Hit E as our editor loads up the chest. Hello, Kuyame. How you doing? And then there you have it. So all that's working good. I can take all. And let's swim out. We'll go swim to the surface. There you have it. So far, so good. So we got our little oasis all set up here in the middle. We can harvest our plants. All that stuff is working out great. So that's the nice thing. That's already pre-programmed, all set up, so you don't have to worry about doing any of that type of stuff. Okay, hit escape. And there's our oasis so far. It's looking pretty snazzy. So that's going to work out great. Kind of give it some more life back here. So I'll be working this area. Hopefully we'll get to this, but this is the water tutorial and how to place the water and all that, where to get it from, blah, 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 etc., etc. So, but let's see. I got about, it's 4:30, so we've been streaming for about an hour. However, I'll make up for that 10 minutes where we had to sit there and wait for the dev kit to load up. So if you had to fast forward through that, I'm sorry. Dev kit was being very, very slow. Okay, so we got the water in. So now say we want to put some life into the water. Obviously, right now the game doesn't allow NPCs to attack and travel underwater and attack the player, but there's what we call particle effects. So if we go to content and we type particle, actually let's type fish. Now we're going to get some blueprint fish, and I think Funcom was working those. And we got the fish men. Okay, so all these blueprints currently, they can work on a spline system, but right now they don't work to attack you. So I'm wondering if they're working on that still. They just haven't released it yet, but hopefully they will. That'd be great, because then we can actually have fish that attack players underwater. Would be awesome. But what we're looking for is the particle effects. So here we go. These are the particle effects. They usually have a little red triangle in the corner. Now some of these particle effects show up in render, some don't. I'm just going to go ahead and use the game ocean floor. So if you look at the path of the particle effect, it says path game ocean floor particles. That's the ocean floor kit. Those particle fish do show up, and those are the ones that currently swim in the river. Some of these other particle effects currently aren't showing up. I have no idea why, but they're not. So we're going to just go ahead and grab those fish. So I'm going to just grab the fish sparse, because I don't want a whole lot of fish in here. So I'm just going to use the small sparse. You just make it look like there's a couple fish swimming around down here. I might have to bring it up just a little bit higher. And let's adjust the effect a little bit. Because the way the particles work is they kind of play through an animation. And we also want to adjust it to where they don't look like they're smashing into the sand. So they're a little strange on how particles work. And this is actually kind of a big particle. Alright, let's try another fish dense, fish sparse. And depending on what ones you're using, just set it up to where you like. This might be a little too small of a pond for these guys, for these particles, because it looks like they're going to just smash into the sand here. But if your player's not looking and following the fish around, hey, wait a minute, your fish going to the dirt. It's immersion breaking, Snow Hunter. You're a jerk. I know, I'm sorry. I made sandfish. Ha ha ha. It's the sandfish. And let's do fish sparse A. We'll just double check these and see how well they work. Yeah, for the most part they work, but I don't want them to go all in the same direction. So if I keep them in the same direction, of course you're all going to figure out that Snow Hunter is trying to illusion me and mess with my illusion and immersion. But yeah, that's what the particle effects will do. So if you can spread them around, change the directions, rotate them so they're not all traveling the same direction, because that does kind of go, okay, that's a little strange. So I'm just going to adjust these guys over here like so. And if we can make it look like the fish are just swimming around, great. There. So you have no idea. It looks like a bunch of fish are just kind of swimming around right now from this angle. And then we'll hit save. And if we hit play from here, we should be able to look at them from our dock and see them swimming around in the water. And let's see. Let's see if we can see our fish. Yep, there you go. We can see our fish through the water there to our right. Just kind of travel along. If we go underwater, we can kind of see them moving around. And our other fish have disappeared. Probably because I moved them too far away. So I'll have to fix the adjustment of those. Or are they broken? That's a good question. Those particles might be broken too. Because I noticed some particles are working and some aren't. With some of our fishes. Which is very weird. So let's hit play again. Just double check that. One more time. Very interesting. Those fishes are not showing up. Okay. Just the yellow. Well, that's kind of odd. So let's find our particle for these guys. And let's get rid of that one. I'm not going to have a particle effect that's not working, sitting there taking up space in the engine. So let's find this other one. Alright. Let's see here. Well, that was unplanned to have fish not working. I don't want to do dense either, so let's try another particle effect. Let's do dense here just to see if these guys fire off. So that they're a dense school of fish. So let's try that. I guess we can have a dense school. Hit play. All right, so without further ado, I think it is time for me to head out of here. And thanks for tuning in. I appreciate everybody tuning in and stuff like that. Um, it's been great. Thanks for your support and all that. I think we're up on our hour and 15 minutes now, so I'll try to get this up in the next couple of days for those of you who are following my tutorial series. Um, like I said, I appreciate you following, subscribing, or donate to my Patreon. Much appreciated. I'll try to continue to do more Conan stuff and get that out there. If you have any questions or comments, please contact me in the Discord. So without further ado, I better head out of here and get my butt to work. So take care, everybody, and we'll see you later.